Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all are doing well on this Thursday edition. So the week has flown by. I've been very busy with my day job. I co-hosted our afternoon drive show on the KSL Sports Zone earlier this week, and it's really the week has just kind of flown by. But bigger point I want to talk about as we close up shop on today's show is talk a little bit more about NIL and its impact in the transfer portal and how it is benefiting the BYU Cougars. Now, the conversation here is we've heard from guys, Paul Lillianquist, who was that booster that told Myron Medcalf from ESPN that, quote, we will not be outbid, unquote. And that was a bold statement to come from a BYU booster. But here's the deal. BYU has a pile, and I use the term pile very willingly, of money when it comes to NIL. The biggest thing, a lot of these programs out there in the college basketball universe are essentially dealing with what they call a salary cap, if you want to term it that. They have essentially a set amount of money of NIL money they can offer to players, and they have to divvy it up however they will. Top tier players, according to reports out there I've seen, are requesting as much as $3 million and may even be requesting more than that when it comes to the transfer portal and what they're looking for when it comes to NIL. That's a hefty chunk of change. And there's not a lot of programs out there outside the Power Four, or I should say the Power Five, because the Big East is in this conversation, that I don't think will be able to match what some of those athletes are looking for. The thing about it is I had a conversation with a person yesterday, and we were talking about other Big 12 programs, and they had some intel on, let's say, I'd say a middling Big 12 team. That's probably the term I would use for this program. I'm not going to name them because I'm just not going to burn a source like that. But the thing is, this I would call middling Big 12 program has an NIL budget apparently this year of $11 million. It's pretty hefty and nice chunk of change to have to be able to spread around to your athletes. Well, here's the deal. If BYU is not, as Mr. Lillianquist told ESPN, not going to be outbid, that means they've got 12, 13, 14, $15 million. What do they have? It feels like BYU has got infinite pockets, and if they have players out there, and I'm saying multiple players because there are multiple roster slots open currently, and Kevin Young ultimately will fill out a full roster of players, BYU is going to be forking over a considerable amount of money, especially if you believe that at the top end of the reports around AJ DeBonsa alone say that he's going to make $8.5 million on his own. That would chew up, was that 70% of that $11 million budget for this, like I said, a middling Big 12 team? It's nice to have BYU's boosters putting money where their mouths are. And they are doing exactly that. And if you are a Cougar fan who believes that NIL is ruining the sport or ruining what you love about college sports, I don't know what to tell you, because this is the reality. This is the era of college sports we live in. And now that it's above board, it's legal, everybody can do it. BYU has their ducks in a row. They have got supremely motivated boosters who have got infinitely deep pockets. And I know that guys like Ryan Smith are the poster children for this, but it's not just Ryan Smith. BYU's got dozens of boosters who have got net worths of, let's say, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're willing to put the money up to put the best product on the court they can for the BYU basketball program. That's why I got like AJ DeBonsa partially picked BYU. He said the money was all the same for these programs, but it was top tier money. Low end of the reports were $4.5 million. Top end, 8.5. It's still a ton of money. It would carve up a major chunk, like I said, of that $11 million budget for a program that's, I guess, what I would consider to be middling in the Big 12. And BYU is not even blinking an eye at it. And the BYU could be, I don't even know what the reports are and what the expectation is that Dominic Diomande is going to make an NIL, but I don't think he came cheap. I don't think anybody that BYU is chasing right now in the transfer portal was a guy like Silas Damari Jr. I know that he has a crystal ball from 24/7 Sports linking him to UConn. Well, he's not going to come cheap if he were to pick a program like BYU. There is going to be a lot of money flowing around for BYU when it comes to the transfer portal, but enjoy it because BYU is a Leviathan and they have other programs, boosters, coaches, administrators quaking in the boots, to use that expression, wondering how we ever going to be able to compete with that. And that I'm fully on board with it. I love the fact that BYU is kind of on the opposite side of things after years and decades of being an athletic department in a university that always said, hey, we do more with less. I've said it often on this podcast, who are longtime everydayers, do more with more. Well, that's what BYU is endeavoring to do right now. They've got more, and they are going to hopefully do more with that more. That makes sense? But the bigger point is, BYU is going to be a force in college basketball so long as the NIL funds continue to be there for them to wade into. I have never been told in all my conversations with people in and around BYU sports that there is one of those proverbial salary caps for BYU football or BYU basketball. That means to me, in many respects, I feel like BYU has this infinite pool of money that they can dip into. And especially when it comes to BYU basketball, that appears those purse strings are wide open. And if Kevin Young feels like he needs the amount of money to get a player to BYU, that money will be there for him to get that player there. Now, it's not always going to be just about the money. A lot of guys are supremely motivated by how much NIL money they can make. I think that Dallin Hall is motivated by it. I think literally everybody out there in the entire world is motivated by money. You tell me that I could double my salary, quadruple it, whatever it might be, at a different, let's say in my case as a radio producer, you tell me that X company in this state says, hey, Jake, we know that you're making this much money. We'll triple or quadruple your money. I'm asking them, where do I sign? I don't think I'm alone in that. I think almost 98% of you would do the exact same thing if you could double, triple, or even quadruple your money. That's what's happening for some of these guys, speaking of the athletes in the transfer portal. And BYU, they're going to make a bunch of young men very, very rich, chief among them, a guy like A.J. DeBonza. They will also reward guys who are already on the roster. I fully expect a guy like Richie Saunders, should he come back to BYU, he will get a massive raise when it comes to NIL. Same thing with Jaeger Demon. Anybody who's on that roster who had an impact this past year and is looking for an increase, I would fully expect that they will make sure that they are taken care of from that perspective. The other thing coming into effect coming up this summer is that player revenue share. Up to $20.5 million is going to be spread around amongst BYU athletes. Yes, the majority of it, as I understand it, will be going towards BYU football, but there's still going to be, according to reports, $4 to $5 million available of that money that can also be spread around from the university directly to these athletes. There's a lot going for BYU, and it sure feels like BYU has got a lot going for itself, and I hope it pays off. I hope that Kevin Young gets the type of talent into BYU, Kalani Sitake gets the type of talent into the BYU football program, and they can watch BYU flourish on the national stage. Cougar Nation wants nothing more than to see BYU on top of the college sports universe, and with the amount of money BYU apparently, or at least it appears, is willing to spend, they should be able to stay near the top, if not competing for it all, if they get, obviously, the right investments and the right players in the right spaces, etc. It looks very, very promising for BYU. And I, for one, I'm excited to cover it all, as always. So once again, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all having a fantastic day whenever you hear and or watch this. Please continue to subscribe, rate, review, share this with your family and friends. Comment on the show. Let me know what you guys think, whether it's in the YouTube comments, via social media, or email. Reach out anytime you guys would like to chat. But as always, thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And thank you to all of you who are everydayers right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.